Hi, welcome back to Did You Know podcast. I'm Tristan Tice, your co-host.
I'm Ira Brower, Rabbi of Shalom Boca Messianic Congregation, and we're so happy to be here today. And we're going to be talking a little more about Hanukkah. We did in the last episode. We're going to continue on talking about Hanukkah, more about the traditions and how Hanukkah is celebrated today. Right?
Yes. And so when we talk about Hanukkah and the traditions, what comes to mind for you first?
You know, for me, growing up, it was always a fun holiday, and I think it's true today as well. It's a celebration, it's a remembrance of God's faithfulness in preserving his people, which of course he's done throughout history and even today. So I think it's especially significant in today's environment with the war still raging and going on and so on in the Middle East, and the uncertainties and the anti-Semitism and everything else, but that we can confidently say is the common statement, Am Yisrael Chai, which means the people of Israel live.
Yes.
And that's what Hanukkah really is about.
Yeah, for me, Hanukkah growing up, it was a lot of festivities. It was a big celebration. We would spin the dreidel, we would light the menorah, we would open gifts, and typically it was like a gift a night. But I think sometimes my parents kind of cut it short. This one's for 2 days because I have, 3 brothers. So that's a lot. Kind of adds up.
That's a lot.
Kind of adds up.
Yeah.
But it was really celebratory, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Same for me. When I was growing up, aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents, we all get together, and all the kids got gifts from all the adults, all the parents and cousins and everything else. And it was just a fun time to be together. We'd light the menorah, eat the potato pancakes, latkes, and play games, and it was a lot of fun. So last time we left off, I mentioned the dreidel.
Yes.
So I think it would be a good way to start is to talk about this dreidel.
Yes.
Right? And what is it? And so typically it's a fun thing that the kids do, and to spin it, and it won't spin too good on my hand, but it actually has more significance historically than just a fun game. So on the dreidel, there's 4 Hebrew letters. There's a Nun, Gimel, Hey, Shin, and they each stand for Nes Gadol Haya Sham, which literally means a great miracle happened there. It's funny, in Israel, the dreidels are a little different. They say Nes Gadol Haya Po, which means a great miracle happened here.
Oh, I love that.
Which makes sense, right?
Yes.
So it said that it got its start as a kid's game, but it was actually a cover for being able to teach Torah. Because during the Greek domination over Israel, it was forbidden to study Torah and to learn Torah, and that was true later on Roman time as well. And so this became a cover. So when the kids were playing the dreidel, what actually was happening was an opportunity to teach about the history of what happened.
And so was it the history of what happened specifically in regards to Hanukkah celebrating?
Yes, and more than that, what's
Okay.
happened, what happened through the Torah, the stories of the Torah and so forth, of the generations, God's promises to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and descendants, and so on.
Okay, it probably also taught them maybe some of like the Hebrew alphabet so they could get into
Sure.
what those letters were, and maybe being able to use that as the cover to branch into a bunch of things in regards to Judaism.
Exactly. Yeah, so today kids get together, and then over the years, you could actually gamble
Uh-oh.
with it, but we use gelt.
Yes, I was going to say we would do that with gelt. So it's
Yeah.
chocolate.
Yeah, which is chocolate. Yeah, that looks like money.
Okay.
Yeah, coins.
Yeah.
Yeah, silver or gold coins. Right.
Okay. And then what are some other traditions? So you mentioned the menorah and lighting
Yeah,
the menorah.
so we
So that
we have a menorah
disheveled.
here, and the menorah is a candelabra, and so if we think of the original menorah candelabra at the temple, was actually three on one side, three on the other, and one in the middle, six or seven altogether. But the Hanukkah menorah is a little different because Hanukkah we're celebrating for 8 days. So there's four on one side and four on the other, which is eight. And then this middle one is called the Shamash. Shamash means helper. And so what we do on Hanukkah is the first night, we would just have one candle. These other rest wouldn't be here. So we light the Shamash candle first, and we say traditional blessings, which are blessings over the candles, Lahadlik Ner Shel Hanukkah, to light the Hanukkah candles, and also the remembrance of what God did for us in days of old and still today. And we light one candle. Then the next night we come back in the evening and we have two candles, and we light two candles, say the same blessings, and on until the eighth night, and we light all 8 blessings. So this helper candle is very significant for us as followers of Yeshua, because we see Yeshua as the light of the world, right? And he came and he lights all of our lights.
I think that's
See?
so beautiful.
Yeah, so in John chapter 1, the light of the world came into the world, right? And so we reference that scripture as well and remind ourselves that he is the Shamash, the servant, who came to serve all, and by his example, then we are the light of the world to light and serve others as well. So then we put it back in here after it's lit.
And I kind of love that there's no rhyme or reason to the candles right now. That's typically how it was in our house too, actually. We just took whatever candle colors we could find.
When I was growing up, we just had one color.
Oh.
But over the years, we've gotten creative. Now we have multicolors, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just whatever you put up there is fine.
Right. Real quick, you had mentioned the days of old, and then also still to this day that God is still a light to our path, that he's still the light of the world, and he gives that, for us to be that to others.
Yes.
Would you say that the candles, because there's 4 and 4, which is 8, and then the one helper one, would the days of old be like the 8, remembering the 8 days it was lit, and then the one you said is still for today, like that shows God still today?
Well, you could look at it that way.
Sure. That's creative. That's creative.
The idea
approach.
of that, as in days of old, as today, is the idea that it's not just the Hanukkah story, the Maccabees and so on, it's throwing off the oppressors of the Greeks, but really, if you have no Jewish history, for thousands of years, it's been the same story. The oppressors came, they tried to wipe us out, right? But God in his mercy and in his faithfulness preserved the Jewish people, whether it was, the first Babylonian exile, the destruction of the temple in 70 AD, Inquisition in Spain and Portugal, the Holocaust, and even today with the invasion of Hamas, attempting to really destroy the Jewish people. God has been faithful throughout. So it's interesting that while the story of Hanukkah, and I think we mentioned this in the last episode, is not specifically mentioned in the Bible, in other words, what happened, because the events of Hanukkah took place in 167 to 164 BC, before Yeshua's time. So we could say that was in the intertestament period.
Okay.
Some scholars call it the quiet period or the silent period. Of course, God is never silent, right? Because even looking at the story of the Hanukkah, he's definitely involved in that, and so on. So it took place in between, but as we mentioned last time, yet it's mentioned in John chapter 10 that Yeshua himself was walking in the temple at the time of Hanukkah, and made reference to the miracles that he performed and so on. And so back to the point was that days of old as of today, throughout Jewish history, we can say, point to all these different events and say, yep, that was another example of God's faithfulness. Yep, that was another example. And even to today.
Okay, so one other question about traditions that comes to mind before
Sure.
some other things, but what about the food we eat?
Sure. So the food we eat. So there's two main foods that are traditional for Hanukkah. One is called in Hebrew sufganiyot, which are basically fried donuts.
Okay.
Okay, and the other one is, which most people are more familiar with, are the latkes, the potato pancakes. And what do they have in common? They're both fried in oil.
Okay. And
Okay.
oil is a big part of Hanukkah
Yes, and why is that?
because it's what the oil lasted for 8 days and it was only supposed to last a short amount of time.
Exactly, right. So the story goes that when the Maccabees came to restore the temple after it was defiled by the Greeks by sacrificing
The
a
pig.
pig and building a statue of Zeus, and when they restored it and started lighting the temple menorah, which needed consecrated oil, there was only enough for one day. And according to the tradition, the oil miraculously lasted for 8 days until they could consecrate more oil. So oil then is a big part of it. So we fry the donuts and we fry the potato pancakes in the oil to remind us of that story.
I have a question though, real quick. What is the significance of it lasting 8 days? Like, how is that
Yeah,
the miracle?
That-
Why not longer?
that is really a good question. I'm glad you asked. So when the Maccabees came to restore the temple from the defilement of the Greeks, what they did was they celebrated it for 8 days because the most previous holiday in the Jewish calendar was Sukkot,
Okay.
the Feast of Tabernacles, which was in the fall. So
Okay.
the biblical feast, according to Leviticus 23, and that is the last one in the the Moedim, the appointed times. And because they couldn't celebrate it under the rulership of the Greeks and so on, and the temple being defiled, they couldn't bring the sacrifices and so on into the temple for Sukkot. They replicated Sukkot 8 days. We're going to celebrate for 8 days.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
So it was like a delayed celebration of Sukkot, Feast of Tabernacles. A couple months later, albeit because it was December, it was in the Kislev, the Hebrew month, and so that became the tradition to celebrate for 8 days.
And for somebody watching right now, if they haven't seen, I know we did episodes on Sukkot and the fall festivals.
Yes.
But could you maybe give a sentence or two about what Sukkot is really quick to kind
Sure.
of jog some memory?
Right. So the fall feasts are Feast of Trumpets that we call Rosh Hashanah now, Yom Kippur, which is 5 days, 10 days later, Yom Kippur, and then Sukkot, Feast of Tabernacles, is 5 days after that, and that's celebrated for 7, and there's an 8th day that's added on as well.
Okay.
And it was the Feast of Gathering to remember when our forefathers were wandering in the wilderness and they lived in tents, tabernacles. And that's basically it. It's also the harvest time, so there's many things associated with tabernacles as well.
Yes, and that was a brief jog of your memory, but we do encourage you to go back and watch for a more in-depth
Yes.
explanation and understanding of it.
Yeah, we did the fall feasts.
Yes. And so lastly, I want to touch on some special prayers or blessings that we say when lighting the menorah or during this holiday.
Yeah, so again, when we light the candles, basically we're saying, we're blessing God for the candles and for the lights. And then the second blessing is remembering what he did in days of old, and as he does in the modern time. And then there's a traditional song called Rock of Ages Ma'ot Tzur that we sing that is also remembering his mighty hand and what he did against the enemies of old.
Right.
And again, still today.
And we would often say, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Hanukkah.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly.
Look at me
Oh.
going back to my Jewish roots, never leaving me.
Exactly. That is the blessing.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, and the other one is Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asa nisim, who did miracles by Yamim Haim in those days, and Lazman Hazeh, as he does today at this
Yes.
time.
So we hope this was a blessing for you to get to be a part of some of our culture and, you know, what we do to celebrate. But, oh, last thing actually, maybe to leave off, would you say Christians could also celebrate Hanukkah?
Sure, I mean, anyone, it's a get to, not a have to.
Yes.
Right? Like so many things in Jewish life, we get to celebrate these things because it's a blessing as well. And we are having a celebration in our congregation. And actually, January 1st, we didn't really talk about this, how on the calendar this year, Hanukkah doesn't start till December 25th in the evening and goes through January 1st. So on January 1st, our congregation is going to be celebrating Hanukkah at our community center. And anyone who's interested to attend, just go to our website, www.shalomboca.com, and you have to sign up and so on. But yeah, anyone that is wanting to celebrate it, of course, family time, and it's a wonderful celebration.
Yeah. So we are so blessed to have you here watching, listening, and learning with us. We hope that this was an encouragement to you in your own personal walk with Yeshua, and we will see you next week. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, all the things. So we will see you next week. Have a great day. Bye.